Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 secrets NASA don't want you to know. NASA has done some amazing stuff over the years, but when dealing with space, things like hoaxes, cover-ups, aliens and UFOs among other things can come to light. So here are some totally mind-blowing things that NASA don't want you to know. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications too. Coming in at number 10, we have UFO livestream. Just a simple Google search will show thousands of images and videos of people who claim to have caught UFOs on camera. But seeing as NASA always say they're fake, most people believe them. But what about when NASA catches a UFO on camera themselves? Believe it or not, this has happened 3 times. NASA have something called the International Space Station livestream, which anyone can see online. It's a 24/7 livestream of Earth from space. But in July of 2016 and January and February of 2017, mysterious objects could be seen in the video. When this happened, NASA cut the broadcasts every time. In 2016, they cut to a video of a briefing room, and both times in 2017, they simply cut to static as soon as people spotted the objects on the video. And when the video came back, there was no more UFO. Many say that this is evidence of aliens and UFOs visiting Earth, as they're flying higher than any satellite and are too big to be natural objects. NASA say they're simply pieces of satellite which have fallen off. But if that's the case, why do they turn off their live stream every time it happens? Next up is Coverup. In 1986, something terrible happened during a NASA rocket launch. The rocket was called the Challenger, and as it was being blasted into space, the fuel tank exploded. This took the lives of all 7 crew members, of 6 astronauts, and 1 school teacher. This is of course terrible, but NASA said the crew wouldn't have experienced their horrible demises, as they would have fallen unconscious as the cabin depressurized. However, it was later found out that this was a cover-up, and they were awake to experience their terrible fate. There was no evidence of buckling, so it can't have depressurized. The crew survived the explosion, meaning they fell to the ground from very high up. However, this did not make NASA look good, so they covered it up. The Rogers Commission, who investigated the crash, even found that NASA didn't take precautions against this happening. NASA had thought about delaying the mission, as some were concerned, but they went and did it anyway. The Rogers Commission also found that if the rocket was prepared, they could have landed softly on water, meaning the crew would have survived. However, due to a lack of preparation, these 7 innocent people perished. Next up, we have Spacesuit. One of the biggest conspiracy theories surrounding NASA is to do with their Apollo 11 mission, which is where they sent a man to the moon for the first time. Many say it was really filmed in the Nevada desert, Area 51, or even Ireland, simply to make the USA look better than the USSR during the space race. However, one odd thing about the moon landing, which many people claim is evidence that the moon landing is a hoax, is to do with Neil Armstrong's spacesuit. Neil Armstrong's spacesuit is preserved in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, and as you can see here, the boots he wore to the moon are flat. However, in the official NASA photographs of the moon landing, the images show the footprints on the moon to be bumpy. This suggests that this wasn't really his spacesuit, or the photos are fake. Do you think this is proof of the moon landing being a hoax, or not? Next up is Secret Weapon. Right now, NASA is working on the James Webb Space Telescope, which is due to launch in October of 2018. It's 100 times more powerful than the Hubble telescope and is 3 times larger, which will allow NASA to see parts of the universe never seen before. In 2016, videos and images of the telescope were released, however, one of its mirrors were blurred out. But why is this, and what are NASA hiding? Well, it turns out that this is a weapon, which is why they had to blur it, so that other intelligence sources in other countries can't analyze it. The weapon is thought to maybe be able to launch some kind of emergency missile, and an inside source said that the James Webb telescope may be used for mass surveillance and spying. Next up is NASA's Nazis. One of the most damaging operations carried out by NASA has to be Operation Paperclip. In case you didn't know, Operation Paperclip shows that some of NASA's greatest achievements were down to the help of Nazis. After World War II, Operation Paperclip was launched. This was where America hired more than 1,600 Nazi scientists to work with them. They worked on architecture, medicine, space exploration, and technologies. Their pasts were erased and their identities were covered up so that the American public wouldn't get mad. The USA did this to simply get ahead of the USSR during the space race. The first Jupiter satellite was made by Werner von Braun, who designed the V2 rocket that took thousands of lives in World War II. And a Nazi doctor named Hubertus Stronghold, who did awful experiments on people without anesthetic, was behind a lot of space medicine still used today. Next up is life on Mars. In 2014, a confirmed former NASA employee who went by the pseudonym Jackie began leaking NASA secrets. She was one of the people working on the 1979 Viking Mars rover. Jackie said that while the rover was on Mars, it was approached by 2 white figures wearing thin protective suits. She and her colleagues were shocked by what they'd seen, so ran upstairs to tell everyone. But when they returned, their room was locked and it was covered up. And in 2009, Dr. Edgar Miller, the 6th man to walk on the moon, called out NASA and the government for covering up knowledge of UFOs. He said aliens have visited Earth before, but NASA denies this. Next up is secret spying rocket. NASA's work is very public, but they actually have an Air Force shuttle which has been in space for 4 years. What's odd is NASA refused to tell the public what it's being used for. It was developed in 1998 and was made classified as soon as production was finished. The only reason why its existence is known is because when it was launched, it sent shockwaves to Florida, so NASA had to come clean. Some think that this could be a dangerous rocket used for missile launches. Others suspect it could be being used for mass surveillance or to hack into satellites. Next up is secret African mission. Did you know that NASA have some secret missions taking place in Africa? They've sent many planes and other technologies there off the books. They refuse to comment on it, and nobody knows the reason as to why they're doing this. So far, they've done everything off the record here. It's never been confirmed as to what they're doing in Africa, despite it going on for 4 years. Some insiders say that the US is preparing on an African war or to take over African countries. What do you think the reason behind NASA keeping these African missions secret is? Next up, we have hacking. NASA has some of the most advanced technology in the world at its fingertips. So you might assume that they would never be able to be hacked, right? Well then you would be wrong, because NASA is surprisingly vulnerable and easy to hack into. But it's also very dangerous when people hack into them. Over the last few years, secrets have been stolen, data has been leaked, and even missions have been hijacked. In 2001, a British man named Gary McKinnock hacked into the most classified NASA files looking for UFO evidence. He didn't find any, but he did leave them a Word document saying your cybersecurity sucks. NASA staff have admitted they're very scared of hackers gaining control of their space operations, such as shuttles with astronauts in them. And even their chief information officer Renee Wynn says it's only a matter of time before this actually happens. Next up is China. It's no secret that China is slowly overtaking the USA economically. Just listen to the President of the United States.
China. You want to buy from China? That's great. Buy from China.
But where else is China exceeding the USA? Well, it turns out that China's aerospace grasp has been increasing slowly but surely and will soon overtake the USA. The NASA budget is only 11% of what it was in the 1960s. This means that the USA may soon not be a world leader in space exploration or technology. The US will only be able to fund the International Space Station for another 5 years. This means in 5 years' time, China will be the controller of the International Space Station after this position was held by America ever since it was built by America. And China's also set to land on the moon and put a rover on Mars by 2022. Due to China's economy being quite a bit better than the USA's right now, and seeing as they're in less debt, this means they'll have more money to spend on space. So forget the USA and USSR space race, because it seems like it's USA versus China now. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most shocking NASA secret. And guys, be sure to check out my second channel, The Crafty. There'll be a life hack video on screen in a second, so check it out. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.